formed the 1st of March 1944.
44, yeah, March 1st, that's right. Well, it was an interesting thing because we knew we needed a way to rescue the pilots, a lot of them in the water, especially in the Pacific. So we shared experiences over in the Pacific at the time that never be duplicated again. It was almost miraculous, some of the things that we've done. We flew, the Navy designation was PBYs. The Army Air Corps called them OA-10As, amphibians made by Consolidated. And we had some B-17s with a 17-foot boat underneath and 3 big parachutes. And when we couldn't get into the water with the seaplanes, or where we could get to them, we'd drop that boat. We dropped several of those. And we had some support aircraft. We had a C-47 transport that we flew. And toward the tag end of the war, we got the first 3 helicopters. They were in a depot down in Manila. We got the helicopter pilots before we got the helicopters. Didn't know what to do with them. Very primitive equipment. Those PBYs, I think, were first made in 1932. 33, the first models of them. We were still flying them. They had put bigger engines on them and made some improvements, but we were flying airplanes that were 12, 15 years old and 20 years old. You can imagine maintaining an airplane, 2 big engines on it like that and all, under primitive conditions that we had over there in the Pacific. It rained every afternoon at 2 o'clock when you're down Lady. That part of it rained like hell. These guys would change engines and propellers and do major overhauls. They had to hang a block and tackle from a tree somewhere to lift the engine, and they did absolutely miraculous stuff to keep those airplanes flying. And I don't ever remember being scheduled for a mission where the airplane was down and unable to fly. Is that right?
I think that's right. They were out. They would go along behind the offensive forces, the bombardment and the fighter groups. And when there was somebody, they would off at a safe distance, they would orbit, what they said, waiting for somebody to go down and be in need. And more often than not, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
On a mission. After the bombs had dropped and maybe the plane had been hit by ACAC, they'd have to crash land on the sea, and they'd call them in with a short-range radio. And
we would find them, and if the sea was too rough to land in, we kept 4 submarines around for most of where a lot of the action was, and we'd call a sub, and they'd come in and pick these guys up. They just did fantastic. In fact, I've always said everybody that's on a sub crew over there should have gotten a congressional medal. You know,
In addition to saving the lives of our airmen that had gone down in the open seas, we feel especially proud of the fact that we evacuated Hank's family under a state of duress because they were there under the threat of a Japanese retribution. At that point in time, February of 1945, this was when the war was really starting to go very, very badly for the Japanese. To me, at least, our signature picture that came out of the war, the image of this little 15-month-old infant being lifted out of the blister, handed down ever so gently by one of our tech sergeants to another tech sergeant there on the ground. You take 2 or 3 years out of a young man's life and living together constantly day after day, it develops bonds which do survive over the years. You know, it's pretty hard to describe.
Closer than brothers. You felt like you're a part of the family, and what you did as a crew member, you put your life in the hands of everybody on the crew, and they in yours. And if you didn't have the utmost confidence in them and put your life in their hands, then you just didn't go with them. And that's a pretty close bond.